Hello, my brilliant students. A very warm welcome to all of you getting ready for your WAEC, NECO, and JAMB exams. I'm so happy you're here today. We are about to tackle one of the most important and I think one of the most interesting topics in your biology syllabus, ecological management. This is all about how we live with and take care of our environment. So, you might want to get your notes ready because we're jumping right in. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we will cover exactly why this topic is an absolute banker for your exams. Then, we'll get into the core concepts you just have to know. After that, we'll make it real by looking at ecology right here in Nigeria. And then, the best part, we're going to practice with real past questions from WAEC, NECO, and JAMB. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a quick revision and some killer exam tips. It's going to be a full but very useful session. All right, let's get into it. You're probably thinking, okay, so why should I focus so much on ecological management? Well, the answer is simple. It is a high score. Seriously, questions on this topic show up all the time, in your objectives, in your theory, everywhere. If you master this, you are giving yourself a huge advantage. And just so you know, we are sticking strictly to the script here. Everything you see on this list is pulled directly from your official syllabus, from the factors that decide where animals and plants live, to how they interact, all the way to how we manage our resources. This is exactly what the examiners are going to be looking for. So, what does this big phrase, ecological management, actually mean? Well, at its heart, it's just about using what we know from biology to keep nature balanced. It really boils down to three things: keeping ecosystems healthy, saving resources like our water and forests, and trying to clean up the mess we humans sometimes make. You can just think of yourself as a manager for planet Earth. Okay, so now that we know what we're talking about, let's build the foundation. We're getting into the really important stuff now, so this is where you need to listen up. Trust me, every single thing we talk about next could be an exam question. Okay, first up, abiotic and biotic factors. This one is a classic. The A in abiotic should give you a clue. It means none or without. So abiotic factors are the non-living parts of an environment. You know, things like the temperature, how much rain falls, or the pH of the soil. Biotic, on the other hand, means living. This includes everything from a lion hunting its prey to two trees competing for sunlight, and of course, us humans and all our activities. The main takeaway here: both of these work together to decide who lives where. So, how do all these living things interact with each other? Well, that brings us to symbiotic relationships. Think of it like this. Mutualism is a total win-win. Both sides are happy, like the bacteria helping a cow digest grass. Parasitism is a win-lose. One benefits and the other suffers, like a tapeworm in a person. Not so nice. And then there's commensalism, which is kind of like a win-meh situation. One organism gets a benefit, and the other, well, it's not bothered at all. It honestly couldn't care less, like a small plant growing on a big tree just to get some sunlight. All right, let's talk about the flow of energy, or really, who eats who. This is a food chain. It always starts with a producer, usually a plant like grass that makes its own food from the sun. Then along comes a primary consumer, like a grasshopper, that eats the grass. But then a secondary consumer, maybe a lizard, comes and eats the grasshopper. And it doesn't stop there. A tertiary consumer, like a hawk, might swoop down and eat the lizard. And when all of them eventually die, the cleanup crew arrives, the decomposers. These are the bacteria and fungi that break everything down and return the nutrients to the soil. It really is the circle of life. My dear students, please listen to me. If there is one diagram you need to know inside and out, it is this one right here, the nitrogen cycle. I'm telling you, WAEC, NECO, JAMB, they all love this diagram. Nitrogen is super important. It's a building block for proteins. But here's the catch. We can't just breathe it in from the air. It has to go on a whole journey to become useful. And that's what this cycle shows. So please, I'm begging you, study every single label on this diagram. Now, I know that diagram looks complicated, but don't panic. We can break it down into 5 simple steps. First, we have nitrogen fixation. This is where special bacteria grab nitrogen from the air and turn it into ammonia. Next up is nitrification, where other bacteria change that ammonia into nitrates, which is like plant food. Step 3 is assimilation. That's just a fancy word for the plants soaking up those nitrates from the soil. Then, when plants and animals die, we get ammonification. That's the decomposers breaking them down and releasing ammonia back into the soil. And finally, denitrification is when different bacteria turn the nitrates back into gas, sending it up to the atmosphere to start the whole cycle all over again. See? Not so bad. So, how do whole communities of life change over time? That's a process called succession. Think of it like this. Primary succession is like starting from scratch on a bare piece of rock after a volcano erupts. There's no soil, nothing. It takes a long time. But secondary succession, that's more like rebuilding after a fire has cleared a forest. The soil is still there, maybe some seeds are too, so life can bounce back much faster. That's the key difference. One starts from nothing, the other starts from something. Okay, let's bring all this theory back home. It's great to know the definitions, but it's even better when you can see it happening right here in Nigeria. This part is going to help you connect the dots and answer those tricky application questions in your exams. Take a look at this map of our beautiful Nigeria. It shows our different biomes or ecological zones. Down in the south, where there's lots of rain, we have the lush tropical rainforest. But as you travel up north, the rainfall gets less and less and the environment changes. We move into the Guinea savanna and then the Sudan savanna, where you see more grass and fewer trees. This is a perfect real-world example of how an abiotic factor, rainfall, shapes the kind of life you'll find in an area. And here are some more concrete examples. When we talk about conservation, think about places like Yankari Game Reserve or groups like the Nigerian Conservation Foundation trying to protect our wildlife. When we talk about pollution, a huge example is the oil spills in the Niger Delta, which really damage the environment and harm the fishing business. And for health, a major ecological problem is malaria, which is spread by a living thing, a biotic factor, the mosquito. It's all connected. All right, team, this is it, the moment of truth. You've learned the concepts, you've seen the Nigerian examples, and now it's time to put all that knowledge to work. We're going to break down one past question each from WAEC, NECO, and JAMB. This is how you really get exam ready. Let's do this. Okay, first up, from WAEC 2003, the question is, which of the following environmental factors is not considered in a terrestrial habitat? Our options are temperature, sunlight, humidity, and turbidity. Now, the two most important words you need to zoom in on are not and terrestrial. So we're looking for the odd one out, the one that doesn't belong on land. Let's break this down logically. First, terrestrial just means land. So, does temperature affect the land? Yes. Does sunlight affect the land? Of course. Does humidity affect the land? Absolutely. Then we get to turbidity. What is that? Well, turbidity is how cloudy or murky water is. Water, not land. So, it's an aquatic factor. That makes it our odd one out. The correct answer is D. See? Easy. Next, a question from JAMB 2009. It asks, the association between bacteria residing in the rumen of the ruminant is, options are parasitism, predation, saprophytism, and mutualism. Now, this should sound very familiar. We literally used this exact example when we talked about symbiotic relationships earlier. Let's walk through the logic. What's happening in that cow's stomach, or rumen? Well, the bacteria are breaking down the tough grass for the cow. That's a huge benefit for the cow. And what do the bacteria get in return? They get a warm, safe place to live with a constant supply of food. That's a benefit for them. So, the cow benefits, the bacteria benefit. It's a win-win situation. And what do we call a win-win situation? That's right, mutualism. The answer is D. And for our last practice question, we have one from NECO 1991. Which is the most ecologically viable method of insect pest control? Now, pay close attention to that phrase, ecologically viable. It doesn't just ask what kills insects, It asks what is the smartest, safest, and most sustainable method for the entire ecosystem. So let's think about our options. Using powerful insecticides? No. That's like using a bomb. It pollutes everything and kills good insects too. Frequent bush burning? That destroys the whole habitat. Not good. Draining stagnant water? That can help with mosquitoes, but it's a very limited solution. But what about C, using natural enemies? That's what we call biological control. It's like releasing ladybugs to eat aphids. It's targeted, it's natural, and it doesn't pollute. It is by far the most sustainable or ecologically viable option. So C is our answer.
We have covered so much today. Fantastic job sticking with me. We're in the home stretch now, and this is a really important part. We're going to quickly go over the key things you must remember, and I'll give you some of my top tips to help you absolutely crush your biology exam. This is how we lock in those marks. All right, take a mental picture of these words. These are your non-negotiables for this topic. You absolutely must be able to define and give an example for each type of symbiosis. You have to know the difference between primary and secondary succession. You should be able to draw and label that nitrogen cycle in your sleep. And you need to know about Nigeria's biomes and the meaning of conservation. These are your keys to success. And finally, here's my personal checklist for exam day. Number 1, please, I'm begging you, spell the biological terms correctly. You can lose easy marks on silly spelling mistakes. Number 2, if you draw something, label it. A diagram without labels is just a nice drawing. It won't get you marks. 3, read the command words. If the question says state, just state. If it says explain, you need to give details. And last but not least, be specific. Don't just write pollution is bad. Give examples. Specific answers are what get the A's. If you found this biology lesson helpful, please like this video, share it with your classmates, and subscribe to our YouTube channel right now. Also, visit www.examkp.com for thousands of free practice questions. Let's smash these exams together.